Hi, fifth grade. Good morning. Well, it's morning for me. I don't know when you're watching this video. All right, so we're going to. Yesterday we learned about dividing hundredths. I'm sorry. Yesterday we learned about dividing tenths by a whole number. And today we're going to focus on dividing hundredths by a whole number. And later on in the lesson, we're going to learn how to round tenths and round to the nearest hundredths. Okay, but for now, let's divide hundreds by a whole number. Let's look at this example. So we're going to divide 0.69 by 3. And so it'll look like this in long division, okay? Where 0.69 divided by 3. And so let's go ahead and see. 3 times what gets you 0 or close to 0 is 0. So 3 times 0 is 0. Then we're going to drop the 6 and 3 times what gets you 6? It's 2, okay? And then so now we're going to drop the 9, okay? 3 times what gets you 9? It's 3, okay? Now I did get my goal, okay? I got a 0 right here, but I'm not done because when I was working on my long division, I ignored the decimal point, okay? Now I'm going to put it right up here, okay, in that spot. Right, now I'm done. So 0.69 divided by 3 is 0.23. All right, pause the video and try these two problems on your own. See you soon. All right, let's try and do number 3 together, okay? So number 3, 2 times what gets you 0? 0. So we're going to subtract 0 and you get 0. So we're going to drop the 2. 2 times what gets you 2? It's 1. So we're going to subtract 2. So 2 minus 2 is 0, right? So we're going to drop the 6 now. 2 times what gets you 6? It's 3, right? So 2 times 3 is 6, so we're going to subtract 6. And I got 0 here. But I'm not done because I can't forget about my decimal points. I'm going to put it right up here, okay? Right up there. Because I'm dividing by a whole number, I can just I'm dividing a decimal with a whole number. I can just place my decimal vertically above, okay? And now I'm done. 0.26 divided by 2 is 0.13. Now for number 4, I just did it right here, and you guys can take a look and see how I did it and pause the video and compare your answer with mine, okay? All right. You got this. So now we're going to keep continuing dividing by hundreds. Look at this example. A vegetable pizza costs $7.75. The cost is shared equally by 5 students. How much will each student pay? So we're going to divide the cost of this pizza, $7.75, by 5. Wow, that's a really good deal on pizza. If 5 people can share that pizza. All right, so here it is set up as long division. And so let's see, 5 times what gets you 7 or close to 7? Okay, 5 times 1 gets you 5, okay? If I do 5 times 2, it gets you 10, which is over 7, okay? So 5 times 1 is the best choice, okay? So 5 times 1, and then it's 5, so I'm going to subtract 5. That gives you 2. And then now I'm going to drop the 7. So 5 times what gets you 27, or close to 27? It's 5, right? 5 times 5 is 25, so I'm going to subtract 25. And then I get 2, but now I'm going to drop the 5. So 5 times what gets you 25? It's 5. So I'm not done yet, right? Because again, I was ignoring my decimal point as I was working on the problem. So now I'm going to just put it vertically up in that same spot here. So 7.75 divided by 5 is 1.55. So each student will pay $1.55. All right, pause the video. It's your turn. Give these problems a try. Okay, let's see what you got. 2 times what gets you 0 is 0. Okay, so we're going to drop the 9. 2 times what gets you 9 or close to 9, it's 4. So 2 times 4 gets you 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. We're going to drop the 2. So 2 times what gets you 12, it's 6. But I'm not done because I have to remember to put my decimal point vertically up in the same spot. So 0.46. Okay, so 0.92 divided by 2 is 0.46. Okay. And for this one, 13, I just did it. And you just check what you got and check my steps with your steps to see if it's similar or if it's the same. Okay. And then for number 14, let's just do it together. Okay. 3 times what gets, so for number 14, usually what we've been doing is, we've been seeing that, okay, 3 times a whole number can't get you 2. So then we have to focus on 3 times what whole number here will get you 22, okay? And that's 7. So remember, we're ignoring the decimal point for now. 3 times 7 is 21. 22 minus 21 is 1. Drop the 5. 3 times what gets you 15 is just 5. So 3 times 5 is 15, so I'm going to subtract 15 and I get a 0. But I'm not done. I have to put the decimal point vertically up there. And once I do that, oh, there's no spot in the ones place here, right? There's no number here. If it's empty here before the decimal point, then we just got to put a 0. Okay? And then so we have 2.25 divided by 3 is 0.75. All right. Now we're going to find quotients to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100th. When we have our place value chart, okay, let's see. I have my 10s and my 1s. Right? I have my 10s column, my 1s column. Then I have my decimal point. Okay. And after my decimal point, right, what's this column called? What's this place value column called? That's the tenths. Right? And then what about here? What's that called? Hundredths. That's a D. Right? Okay. And so we're going to find quotients. That's the answer to division problem. And with our answer, we're going to round it to the nearest 10th and to the nearest 100th. Okay? All right. Let's look at this example. We're going to find the value of 5 divided by 8 to the nearest 10th. So let's look here. Okay? So our long division looks like this. Okay? 5 divided by 8. Okay? And so I see that, wait a minute. Okay? Well, if I want to do this, what number can get close to 5 without going over? It's 0, right? 8 times 0 is 0. If I do 8 times 1, it'll be 8. And I cannot do, right now in this case, 5 minus 8 for long division. Okay, so I'm going to just put a 0 here. Okay, and I know that 5 here is the same thing as saying 5.0. Okay? Because our whole number 5 is the same thing as saying our decimal 5.0 is the same value, except our first number here is a whole number, and this is a decimal. All right, so I did that now. So for now, let's just ignore the decimal, okay, and we'll put it in later. And so now I'm going to drop the 0. So now 8 times what? 8 times what gets close to 50, or is 50 without going over, okay? It's 8 times 6, which is 48. So when I subtract that from 50, I get 2, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another 0 here, okay? And when I do that, I know that 5, my whole number, is the same thing as saying 5.0, which is the same thing as saying 5.00, okay? Right? It's all the same value, okay? So if I have a trailing 0 after a decimal point, okay, it doesn't change the value of that number. So now, I drop the 0 here. So 8 times what gets you 20, or close to 20 without going over? That's 2. So 20 minus 16 is 4. I have to add another 0 here, okay? All right, and then I'm going to drop it down. So then 8 times what gets you 40? That's 5, and then that's 0. And let's add a decimal point vertically up in that same spot, and then it is 5 divided by 8 is 0.625. Now, we want to round this to the nearest 10, okay? And if I write if I write 0.625 in my place value chart, okay, right here that I created, okay, oh, I only have it up to the hundreds, don't I? I don't have it to the thousands, because after the tenths, I have hundredths, then I have thousands here, okay? So I can't even fit it here, okay? But you can just see, okay, the 0 is in the ones, then I have my decimal point, then I have my 6 in the tenths, and 2 in the hundredths, and 5 will be in the thousands, okay? So now I want to round it to the nearest 10. So that means with the tens column here, 6, I have to either keep it 6 or round up to 7, okay? So how do I know what to do? I have to look at the next place value column here, okay? Which is 2, okay? Now 2 is less than 5, so I'm going to keep 6 as a 6, okay? So round 0.625 rounded to the nearest tenth is 0.6. Now, what if it said, hey, round it to the nearest hundredth? What should we do? Well, again, let's look at our quotient, okay, which is 0.625. And then here's my hundredths place here, the 2. I have to round my hundredths place, either keep it as 2 or it'll become a 3, okay? How do I know what to do? Well, let's look here at the thousands place. Now the thousands place is 5 or higher, right? If it's 5 or higher, I have to change this. I have to add 1 to this, right? If it's lower than 5 over here, then I have to keep it as the same number. But this is 5, so that means I have to change the 2 to a 3, and that'll become 0.63. Okay, so that's 0.625 rounded to the nearest hundredth is 0.63. All right, pause the video and try these on your own. 20 through 22 is rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay, 23 to 25 is rounded to the nearest hundredth. All right. Hey, welcome back. Okay, let's see what you did. So we're going to round to the nearest 10, 20 through 22. Okay, 4 times what gets you 0 here is 0. Then I'm going to drop the 7. Okay, 4 times what gets you 7, or close to 7 without going over. That's 1. Okay, 4 times 1 is 4. Let's subtract 4 from 7, which gets you 3. Drop the 2. 4 times what gets you 32 is 8. Okay, and now I got a 0 here, which is what I want, which means I'm done with my long division. But I'm not quite done because I forgot the decimal, right? So I'm going to add it right up here. Okay, and so now I'm done. 0.72 divided by 4 is 0.18. Okay? But I have to go back to the directions. The directions say round it to the nearest 10. Okay? So here's the ones. Here's my decimal point. Here's a 10. So I have to focus on this number. It's either going to stay the same or I have to round it up, okay, to 2. So how do I know? Let's look in the next place value column here, the 8. 8 is greater than 5, so that means for this one, I have to round it up, okay? So it's 0.2. All right, let's look at 21. Okay, for 21, I cannot find a whole number where when I multiply it by 8 times the number, it gets me close to 7 for now. So I'm gonna focus on 75, okay? 8 times what gets you 75 or close to 75, that's 9, okay? So 75 minus 72 is 3, and then I'm gonna drop the 6. 8 times what gets close to 36, that's 4. 8 times 4 is 32, minus 32, then I get 4. I'm going to add a trailing 0, drop that trailing 0. 8 times what gets you 40, it's 5. And I get a 0 here, which is what I want, but I'm not done because I have to add my decimal. So here it is. And now before the decimal is an empty space in my ones place. So I'm going to just put a 0 there, okay? So now when I round it to the nearest 10, here's my ones place, here's my decimal, here's my tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I'm going to focus on my tens. Either it's going to stay as a 9 or I have to increase it by 1. So let's look at the hundredths, which is 4. 4 is less than 5, so that means I'm going to keep that the same. So round it to the nearest tenth is 0.9. For 22, okay, I know that 4 times 2 is 8, so I'm going to subtract it from 9, and I get 1. Okay. I'm going to put a decimal point and add a 0, okay? And I'm going to drop the 0. Okay. 4 times what gets you close to 10 without going over, that's a 2. Okay. Then I'm going to add another trailing 0, drop the trailing 0. 4 times what gets you 20, that's a 5. Okay. And I got a 0, but I can't forget my decimal point right there. And so I'm going to focus on the tens because I have to round it to the nearest 10. I look at the hundredths. It's a 5, so that means I have to increase that by 1. So that's 2.3. Okay? And I just retraced it in red just in case it was hard for you to see the rounded answer that was in light green. All right. All right, our last 3 problems. We're going to round these to the nearest hundredth. And 6 times what gets you 0 is 0. Drop the 7. 6 times what gets you close to 7, it's a 1. So subtract 6 and you get a 1. Drop the 9. 6 times what gets you close to 19 without going over is the 3. 6 times 3 is 18, so you get a 1. I'm going to add a trailing 0. Drop the trailing 0. 6 times what gets you 10 or close to 10 without going over, that's 1. Okay. 10 minus 6 is 4. I'm going to add another trailing 0, then I get 40. 6 times what gets you close to 40 without going over, that's a 6. Okay, then I'm going to add another trailing 0. If I add another trailing 0, and I drop it down, I get 40 again. Then I have to put another 6 here, right? Because 6 times 6 is 36. Then I'm going to subtract 36 again. Then I'm going to get a 4. Then I have to add another trailing 0. And then I go all the way down, and it'll be 40. And so it looks like we're going to repeat this process, right? So that means the answer is 0, 1, 3, 1, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, repeating, okay? So I'm not going to keep going with that because it's a repeating number. And whenever we want to denote a repeating number as a decimal, we just put a bar at the top, like that, okay? So that means, oh, this digit here, 6, is repeating forever. And so now I'm going to add my decimal point right there. And we want to round it to the nearest hundredth. So this is my tenth, this is my hundredth right there. So to see if I have to keep it the same or add 1 to this, I have to look at the thousands place. It's less than 5, so that means I'm going to keep it the same. So my answer rounded to the nearest hundredth is 0.13. All right, let's look at 24. Okay. Here's the work for 24. Okay. And I want to round it to the nearest hundredth. So it's this spot here. To see if I have to round that to keep it the same as a 5 or change it to a 6, I have to look here in the thousands place. The thousands place has a value of 4. That's less than 5, so that means I'm going to keep my hundredths digit the same. So my answer rounded to the nearest hundredth is 0.25. Now for 25, let's try this together, okay? Because this is an interesting number. Okay? So for 25, okay, I can't get a whole number. 7 times something gets me 2 or close to 2. So I'm going to just focus on 27. 7 times what gets me close to 27. Okay, that's a 3. And that's 21. And then when I keep going on like this, okay, and I keep adding trailing zeros, I start getting these digits here that come after the decimal place. There's no pattern to the digits, okay, all right, and it keeps going on and on and on and on, okay, and so what I recommend is when you have like a repeating digit, when digits are the same or digits that keep going on and on and on and on, okay, you can just, when it tells you to round it to the nearest hundredth, just stop at the thousands, okay? Because that's all you need to do. That's all you need to figure out how to round it to the nearest hundredth, okay? So I'm not going to figure out the rest, okay? Because it'll just be a waste of time. You can do it later, I guess, if you're really, really motivated to see, you know, how much you can solve, you know, in however many minutes. But just for now, because our goal is to round it to the nearest hundredth, I would just recommend stopping once you find the thousands, and then you're good. Okay, so now we have these so far. Okay, and I added my decimal point here, so I have my ones, my decimal point, tenths, hundredths, thousands here. Okay, so I'm gonna round this to the nearest hundredth. So I underlined that 6 here because that's in the hundredth spot. To see if I have to keep it as a 6 or add 1 to here, I have to look at my thousands, which is a 5. Oh, it's a 5. So that means I have to add 1 to my 6, which becomes rounded to 3.87. And I traced it in red just in case it was hard for you guys to see that neon green color. All right, well, good work. Keep practicing with dividing decimals and rounding to the nearest tenths and hundredths. It does take some practice for us to get better and better at it. And that's all for today. I'll see you on Thursday. Bye.